Hello, everyone, and thanks again for joining us for Sunday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, meteorologist with the National Weather Service, doing the April 4th, 2001 show. And up first on the hazardous weather graphics, we've got blizzard warning out for the northwest coast and the northern Seward Peninsula, and that's out until 10 p.m. this evening for heavy blowing snow, reducing visibilities to less than a quarter mile at times up there in the area, northern Seward Peninsula and the coast. Kiveling up to Point Hope, gusts 45 miles an hour until 10 p.m. this evening. It'll be probably see a really dramatic improvement after that time into tomorrow as high pressure builds in. And otherwise, winter weather advisory until 10 p.m. there for the Seward Peninsula, Kotzebue Sound, Messelwick, south into the eastern Norton Sound and Norton Bay area and the Lotto Hills. And that's for winds gusting to 35 miles an hour, and visibility is not quite as bad as in the blizzard area, down to maybe under half a mile at times and a lot less frequent. And then there's a winter weather advisory for the Koyukuk Valley until, 7 p.m. tonight for the greater Bedles area there for snow continuing, but that'll be improving. And then we've got winter storm warning for heavy snow still for the Fairbanks area. That's out until 7 p.m. this evening. And for maybe another 2 inches of snow, and total amounts anywhere from 8 to 12 or more inches in some areas up there for the total, say especially from about Nenana to on up across Fairbanks to Upper Chena. Let's see, they had anywhere from 8 to 12 inches in the last 12 hours, or in the last 24 hours there. In some areas, maybe even more, but that seemed to be the heaviest snowfall area, at least taking a glance at it this afternoon. And that'll again improve here until 7 p.m. for the Fairbanks area. The Yukon Flats going to hang out a little longer there, going until 10 p.m. And then for the eastern Alaska Range there's a winter weather advisory. That's out for tonight until 4 a.m. Monday. Winds gusting 45 miles an hour like they currently have been today, with snow and blowing snow, maybe 1 to 2 more inches falling, and visibility is down to less than a half mile at times, especially the Isabel Pass and those areas, Delta Junction quite windy. Otherwise, that's it for the watches, warnings, and advisories. And satellite imagery showing the moisture coming from west to east. High pressure, everything's in pretty good progressive flow from west to east. So system already moving through and affecting mainly the eastern interior now. And that brought some pretty warm temperatures up, lower 40s Anchorage area this afternoon, as earlier today winds gusted to 55 miles an hour at Rabbit Creek on the hillside, and the Anchorage International Airport had gusts to about 43 miles an hour today, and winds about the same, about gusts 40 to 45 even at Glen Alps, and moderate wet snow falling this afternoon at Valdez, temperature 37 degrees, so it's moderate snow, but it's pretty wet at that temperature. And about 1/10 of an inch of rain fell in Yakutat with that massive cloud, or the moisture ahead of the front there, but already clearing out back to the west, snow tapering off and ending. See the ice edge quite well over the northern Bering Sea, with the ice just north of St. Matthew Island. The clear skies extend a little bit south of there. Then you get into clouds with the next system. High pressure over the eastern Bering Sea will build eastward ahead of that next system, which will drive pretty rapidly eastward with a good, strong southwest or westerly jet for the most part across the Bering Sea. Will push that right into the southwest coast. Otherwise, not bad. You can see some clearing around the Fox Islands today. Cloudy for the Alaska Peninsula. A little bit of clearing on the east side of Kodiak Island. And on the chart today, the front crossing Kodiak, actually a little east of there at this current time, and affecting mainly the eastern interior now as conditions improve out west, with high pressure building over the eastern Bering Sea, already pushing inland to the west coastal areas. Pretty strong winds, gusts 51 miles an hour at Kivalina today, with temperatures still 4 below zero, and they picked up anywhere from, 5 inches or so of snow up there. And of course, that blizzard warning continuing until 7 or 10 p.m. tonight. And otherwise, we had rain and snow over the Alaska Peninsula earlier on, that pulling off to the east now, and rain North Gulf Coast, especially around Yakutat, and wet snow for Valdez. And basically dry afternoon over the south central Alaska area with lighter winds now. The trough axis moving eastward, and the gradient not what it was overnight last night. And rain and snow showers over the panhandle, but nothing too heavy. And next system out west there pushes eastward. And by tomorrow afternoon, the warm front already passed the Pribilos and starting to push in toward Nunivak Island. High pressure and over the southwest interior, actually extending from the eastern Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula northward to the western North Slope Arctic coast for clearing skies. And snow showers diminishing as the moisture moves eastward. And the warm front keeps it wet over the panhandle, rain at sea level, especially along the coast and to the south, and a mixture of precipitation, higher elevations, and to the north. And looks like periods of snow for the Copper River Basin up into the eastern or North Waitok area, just north of the Alaska Range. Actually, north of the Alaska Range, more showery, and then kind of breezy on the eastern Arctic coast with snow and blowing snow. And then for tomorrow, high pressure pushes back in over the and really dominates the central and western interior, lingering light snow, possibly not quite as extensive as what I have drawn there, as low pressure tracks to just southwest of Yakutat. Southwest flow keeps it kind of damp over the panhandle with snow at higher elevations, but amounts of pretty light. Snow and blowing snow pushes into the southwest coast, especially Nunivak Island to St. Lawrence Island during the afternoon. Rain and snow for the Pribilos may change to plain rain in the afternoon. Lighter amounts of precipitation for the eastern Aleutians. It's getting grazed by that warm front, and a dry day for Adak and Atka, maybe a little bit clearing, but a lot of clouds too, and then some periods of rain from Amchitka Island to Shimianatu. And for Tuesday, real weak system out there over the western Bering Sea now. Wind's not a factor at all. Some light rain over the Shimianatu area, partly sunny for the remainder of the Aleutian chain, then some rain and snow showers possible. Alaska Peninsula, maybe Kodiak Island. Periods of rain, light rain for the panhandle, and lingering snow showers up over the northeast interior, eastern Arctic coast, as well as the southwest coast. Otherwise, mostly clear, mostly sunny, and light winds over the central and western interior. And for lows tonight, say dropping down to about 0 to 5 for the Susitna Valley, mid-teens Kenai Peninsula to 25 near Homer, lower teens Copper River Basin, 30s, mid-30s, mid to upper for the panhandle near 30 Kodiak Island. Up in the north, again from the Koyukuk Valley to the Arctic coast, anywhere from 8 to 20 below, and below 0 back into St. Lawrence Island and Norton Sound. And mid-20s for the Pribilos, lower to mid-30s Aleutians, mid to upper 20s for the Alaska Peninsula, right around 11 for the Bristol Bay Area, King Salmon, and Dillingham. Highs tomorrow, mid-30s Kodiak Island, upper 20s, lower 30s, South Central Alaska, upper 20s Copper River Basin, 40 to 45 for the Panhandle, 15 to 20 in the central interior, Brooks Range to the Arctic coast, anywhere from 5 to 10 below or so. Single numbers, Seward Peninsula, Kotzebue Sound to St. Lawrence Island and Norton Sound. And mid-30s for the Pribilos, 40 to 43 for the Aleutians, and upper 30s Alaska Peninsula. Lows Tuesday morning, a shade below 0 here in April, falling below 0 there at Talkeetna again, a little below -1. Same thing for the Copper River Basin, McGrath, Nikolai, maybe 5 to 10 below. Single numbers for the Kenai Peninsula, upper teens, Kachemak Bay, upper 20s Kodiak Island, 30s, mid-30s for the southeast coast. And below 0 back in the Tanana Valley, 5 to 15 below and 20 to 25 below for the North Slope on out to the Arctic coast. Again, into the northern Bering Sea, near freezing for the Pribilos, mid to upper 30s for the Aleutians. Highs, 25 to 30, South Central Alaska, 20 to 25 Copper River Basin, upper 30s, lower 40s, Kodiak Island, the southeast coast, near 30 for Bristol Bay, mid-teens in the central interior, below 0, Brooks Range to the Arctic coast, and mid-30s for the Pribilos, otherwise mid-40s for the central Aleutians and Fox Islands.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
First line weather graphic for Monday morning here. We've got IFR from the central Brooks Range North Slope on up across the eastern Beaufort Sea coast, and then an area of IFR right off the western Arctic coast there, otherwise marginal. VFR, Noatak Valley there along the northwest coast, marginal VFR, northern Seward Peninsula. Next area of IFR moving at a pretty good rate, making a good jog to the east there, almost right up to Nunivak Island toward morning, down across the Pribilos and southwest to Shimianatu. IFR for the Panhandle, becoming VFR, Kodiak Island, south central Alaska, on up into the northern Copper River Basin. Marginal VFR in the central interior with VFR to the west and some IFR to the east. And for the afternoon, a swath of VFR from Kotzebue Sound, Seward Peninsula, central eastern Norton Sound across the Yukon River there, Kuskokwim Valley, and into the western Alaska Range down to Kodiak Island, all of south central Alaska, central western Copper River Basin, Prince William Sound, VFR to the north and northeast, areas of marginal VFR and IFR, especially along the Arctic coast. And that next area of IFR slowing down a little bit now, but coming inland a little bit there into the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta, covering the Pribilof, St. Lawrence Island, back now extending eastward to Kiska Island, areas of VFR, Adak, Atka, Fox Islands, Alaska Peninsula, Kodiak, and less IFR for the Panhandle, otherwise marginal. And for the morning, Tuesday, IFR pretty well entrenched over the central and eastern Brooks Range and North Slope Arctic coastal areas down into the Yukon Flats and south to about the Yukon River there around Eagle, and marginal VFR down to the eastern Alaska Range. About the, say, Nenana area, VFR back to the west and northwest, then hit the IFR that's hung up along the southwest coast of St. Lawrence Island. And trailing off, you can kind of see the frontal boundary there, north of the Aleutians, but catching shimmy and Attu. Marginal VFR for the Panhandle. And for the afternoon, IFR for the southern southeast coast, Yakutat, IFR, marginal VFR up the eastern side, east side there, upper Tanana Valley, 40-mile country, the Yukon Flats, IFR, Arctic coast, north slope, into areas of the Brooks Range. Good area of VFR over the central interior, though, down across the Kenai Peninsula, Kodiak Island. Marginal VFR, southwest coast, northern Bering Sea, coastal areas of the Seward Peninsula, Kotzebue Sound, Silowik Valley, northwest coast. VFR areas of Shimiatu, all of the Aleutians there, but it looks like pretty much marginal for the Fox Islands, Alaska Peninsula, and the Pribilofs. And Atuvik, tomorrow IFR trending toward marginal VFR throughout the day, so a little bit better to end the day than to begin it. Same forecast and trend for Adigan. Maybe going or VFR there, that might be a little optimistic, but it's possible. And for Lake Clark and Merrill, VFR. Rainy, marginal VFR to start, but then VFR probably before noon, and windy, occasionally marginal throughout the day. And not much of a trend for Isabel, marginal VFR for the most part, and a pretty good chance of marginal VFR also from Antasta. Tanita, though, VFR. Portage, VFR. Chilkoot and White, IFR to start, marginal VFR to finish. Freezing levels, we've got something of a thermal or gradient there, 2 to 6,000 feet, lying east-west, right along the Aleutian chain at the surface down to the Alaska Peninsula, just north of the Pribilofs, across Kodiak Island, hugging the North Gulf Coast, cutting across the northern Panhandle and down the eastern border, 2,000 feet to 4,000 feet, Prince of Wales Island. Icing, still some possible considerable moderate rime icing, a couple areas there over the southern Panhandle. Less of a threat as you head north, becoming lighter and more mixed in nature. And then some considerable moderate rime icing crossing the Pribilofs, moving into Nunivak Island, and lighter icing threats along the southwest, right along the coast to St. Lawrence Island, back to the Aleutians. Jet stream pushing that next system eastward pretty rapidly is a 150 to 160 knot westerly west to west-northwest jet across the central Bering Sea. Dive southeastward right along the over Bristol Bay to just southwest of Kodiak Island. And at 9,000 feet, 55 to 75 knot winds across the southern Bering Sea. Otherwise lighter over the interior. Westerlies maybe 35 to 40 for the Panhandle. 3,000 feet, shaping up like this. West turns southwest about 45, Yukon Delta coast. Westerlies at 50 for the Pribilofs, 50 to 55 knots across the central Aleutians. Northwest 35 there, Fognak, Barren Island areas, and light over the interior. Turbulence, moderate chop mechanical for northern Cook Inlet, Manuska Valley areas, and also from Kamishak Bay across northern Chillicothe Strait, Kodiak Island, and also along the southwest coast.
So that Galena flood back in 2013 was at the intersection of weather and climate. Rick, I often get questions about the difference between weather and climate. How do you distinguish between the two?
Well, that's a really good question, John. One of the analogies that I like to use, the wardrobe analogy. So in my closet, in my dresser, I've got clothes appropriate for 90-degree weather and 50 below weather. That's the climate part of my wardrobe. Well, what I'm going to put on today, am I going to wear my Hawaiian shirt because it's going to be a hot July day, or am I going to wear my bunny boots because it's going to be 50 below? That's the weather part of my wardrobe.
You know, there's another interesting analogy. I've heard it said that climate is like your personality, whereas weather is like the mood you're in today. It's like that old John Denver song. Some days are diamonds and some days are stones. That's how weather works.
Of course, it's really a continuous range. Just as the Galena ice jam flooding was the result of a weather event, that ice jam, up against that cold spring, a climate event. So too with less impactful events. For instance, a daily record high temperature is a weather event, one day's high. But we put that in a climate context, say comparing to a century or more of individual temperatures on a given date.
So these extreme events like record high temperatures also happen on the seasonal time scale. Just in the last few years, we've had what was called a marine heat wave in the waters south of Alaska, the Gulf of Alaska and the Bering Sea. But the water temperatures in that area set new records in 2015 and 2016.
And most Alaskans are acutely aware that big wildfire seasons are becoming more and more common, most recently in 2015. And the frequency of million-acre seasons has doubled since the early 1990s.
Just this past winter, we had another event in the Bering Sea. The ice extent in the Bering was lower than it had ever been in the last 150 years. That's about as far back as the good records go. There'd never been another year like this one in the Bering with so little sea ice. That had major impacts on the communities along the west coast and the northwest coast.
So, John, what have you been hearing from folks around town about these kind of climate extremes?
I've heard from a number of people who've been here a long time that winters just aren't what they used to be. The average temperatures are higher than they were back in the 1960s and 1970s, and we just don't get the extreme cold days, the days down in the minus 50s or even the minus 60s that we used to experience in Fairbanks back in the 1960s, 1970s, and even into the 1980s.
Well, and it's not just winter either. 2016 and 2017, the summers brought unusually muggy, humid weather to Fairbanks. We're not used to thinking of that in interior Alaska, but record high humidities during the summer months. As in the winter, we've had a significant increase in freezing rain events, since about 2000. So much so that DOT has changed their road treatment strategy, and now we have the school district building in winter rain days into the calendar. And of course, we all need good weather forecasts for these high impact weather events.
We know, though, that weather forecasts are sometimes wrong just 3 or 4 days in advance. So if these weather forecasts and the models they're based on can't pick up events like freezing rain 3 or 4 days ahead, how can we believe what they say about climate for the future?
Well, that's a really good question, John. And I think the important thing to remember is that parts of the system are predictable.
So climate models can't give you weather for particular days or even for particular months or years. They actually predict averages. These are averages over periods of a decade or two, or even averages over periods of several years. So they don't give us the month-to-month information that we might want. What are they telling us about the future, though?
Well, these climate models are telling us on the decades-long time frames that warmer winters are going to become more common. We're going to have more frequent, very low sea ice years with late freeze up and early meltout. And the same will be true on Alaskan rivers. We'll have more frequent seasons when freeze up is late and break up is early.
One of the other common threads in these climate model predictions is that heavy rain events and heavy snow events will become more common in the future. That's actually a prediction that the models make for mid-latitudes as well as for high latitudes in areas like Alaska. So we can expect the heavy downpours to become heavier and the heavy winter snows to become heavier than we've been used to. They're also predicting more frequent freezing rain events, getting back to what you talked about earlier. These events that might have happened just once every year or two in the past could actually end up happening several times in a winter in the future, according to the climate models.
And it is important to remember that even in a warming world, there are still going to be seasons and years that are colder than the average, but these cold seasons will become less and less common. So, John, maybe I don't need to have those bunny boots in my closet anymore?
Well, at least you won't need to wear them as often as you did in the past.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Today's sea ice analysis. Not a lot of change from yesterday, although the ice really thinning out now south of the Forelands in Cook Inlet, and the heavier ice starting to thin out, it appears, north of the Forelands, obviously with the warmer winds we had over the last 24 hours. And same thing going on in Bristol Bay. Bering Sea ice field, the main pack, there's a little farther north of St. Matthew Island, but still some heavier ice down there to the east side. And it looks like a little bit more thinner ice north side of Nunivak Island. Coastal water forecast, west winds, or southwest winds 20 knots for the coastline. The entire stretch of the coastline there with seas 9 to 10 feet. South 20 knots for Stevens Passage and Lynn Canal with 4-foot seas. Clarence Strait, south 15, seas 3 feet. Tuesday, north winds at 15 for Lynn Canal and seas at 3 feet. South winds 15 for Stevens Passage and Clarence Strait, with both areas seeing 3-foot seas. And still a uniform wind pattern out along the coast, all westerly at 20 knots with 9 to 10-foot seas. Prince William Sound, small craft advisories, a stiff northwest wind at 30 knots tomorrow. Seas just under 7 feet, or at 6 feet. And small craft advisories for the North Gulf Coast. Northwesterlies 25 to 30 knots, strongest there on the west side. Become gales for the Barren Islands, northwest 35. And even stronger gales for Kamishak Bay, west 40, 14-foot seas, north at 20 for southern Cook Inlet and northern Cook Inlet, northeast at 10. North of the Forelands on Tuesday, north winds at 10 knots, 3-foot seas. Otherwise, southern Cook Inlet, north at about 20. Kamishak Bay now, small craft advisories. Winds come down at 25 knots, 7-foot seas. Gales continue for the Barren Islands out of the northwest at 35 knots. North to northwest, 25 knots for the North Gulf Coast. Prince William Sound, north at 20 with seas at 4 feet. Kodiak Island, small craft advisories, west-northwest 25 to 30 knots. And from Sitkinak to Castle Cape, we're looking at a northwest wind at 25 for small craft advisories also, 8-foot seas. Pacific side of the Alaska Peninsula, southwest 20, Bering Sea side, southwest 25 with 6-foot seas and 15 knots from the southwest for Bristol Bay. Those pick up out of the north to 25 knots there. Seas build to 6 feet for Bristol Bay. Otherwise, the Alaska Peninsula, west-northwest at 25, 10 to 13-foot seas. And from Castle Cape to Sitkinak, small craft advisories, west 30 knots. East side of Kodiak, northwest 30 knots, seas 8 feet. Shelikof Strait, west at 20. Fox Islands, southwest 25 to 30 knots with the 30-knot winds on the Bering Sea side of the islands. Seas running 6 to 10 feet. Southwest 30, Adak and Atka, as well as Amchitka. Gales coming back into the western Aleutians, mainly Shimi and Attu at 35 knots with 14-foot seas. Then they go southerly at 20 on the next day there. Amchitka Island south 25, Adak and Atka, not too bad. Southwest 20 to 25 knots. Small craft advisories for the Fox Islands, Runamak Island, southwest 25, west 25 on Alaska Island. Southwest coast there, south of Nunivak Island, small craft advisory, south 25 knots, 30 knot winds from the south of the Pribilof. St. Matthew Island, southeast at 30, same thing for the Yukon Delta coast. First wind advisories also for St. Lawrence Island, southeast 25. 15 knot winds, Norton Sound, St. Lawrence Island on Tuesday with southwest coast or Yukon Delta coast, north at 20, Kuskokwim Delta coastline, northwest 20. And 15 out of the west of the Pribilofs, with those seas still up there at about 11 feet, and northeast at 20 for St. Matthew Island with 7-foot seas. First wind advisories for the far eastern Beaufort Sea coast for tomorrow, 25 knots. Otherwise, that diminishes down to 10 knots on the central coast, and that west wind at 10 all the way down to Wales. And then northwest 15, Wales to Cape Thompson, and then Cape Thompson up the western side of the Arctic coast there. 15 knots out of the west, and west at 10 from the central coast to Demarcation Point. And for tonight, high pressure building in off the Bering Sea there. Light winds and clearing skies, and a little colder on the overnight lows tonight. And that extends up to the western North Slope and Arctic coast as well. Breezy with snow diminishing for the eastern Arctic coast of the Brooks Range, and snow becoming more showery and tapering off, but kind of lingering there over the along that trough axis over the Koyukuk and Kobuk valleys, and some snow continues eastern Copper River Basin. Rain and snow for the Panhandle. Next system coming rapidly eastward pushes snow onto the coast with maybe some blowing snow, especially for Nunivak Island, St. Lawrence Island tomorrow afternoon. Rain and snow for the Pribilofs, and some lighter amounts of precipitation in the Alaska Peninsula, Fox Island, just grazing the Aleutians actually until you get farther west. And rain and snow for the southeast coast, and still some lingering snow over the eastern interior. And then for Tuesday, high pressure, mostly clear central interior, snow showers in the northeast and southwest.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.